we're gonna start in the up position, and you don't need anything right away. So we'll start up tall to begin with. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna spend a lot of the class working on our lateral hip. That's gonna be our aim, is this right here, okay? So the first thing that we're gonna do is we're just gonna turn toes forward, and we're gonna roll to the outside edge of your feet, inside edge of your feet. So just that rolling in and out. And as you do that, you'll see the knees will move with that. Okay, so now what we're gonna do is get the feet flat on the floor, and we're just gonna do a gentle just walk side to side. So starting to kind of activate this lateral hip. As you walk, I want you to actually look at your feet, because I want you to notice as you step side to side, what first initiates the movement? So do your toes first initiate the movement, or does your heel initiate the movement? What kind of starts in your foot? If you notice that when you step out, you rotate your toes, maybe it might be really subtle, where it's like just a little turn out. I want you to focus more on leading with this outside edge of your feet, and your heel will be the thing that steps out. Together, step out, together. And if you're not sure, well, what's the difference? Let's try a few of them the other way. So turn the toes out and do your steps. And it doesn't have to be a big turn out of the toes, just a little turn out of the toes. Hopefully what you feel is more of the inner thighs working as you do that. And then when you turn your toes straight forward and lead with the heel, you're getting more of this part. Particularly what we're targeting is glute minimus. That's what we're targeting. Okay, so now I want you to change one more thing with that. I want you to roll to the outside edge of your feet, so much so that your big toe is up off the floor. And now start to go side to side. Again, trying to lead more with the heel. For some of you guys in your bodies, by changing the feet like this, you're going to feel it more in your lateral hips than maybe some of us, just because of maybe how your feet are, how you kind of naturally walk. And some of you are like, I don't feel a difference, and that's fine too. Okay, so now just come center. And what we're going to do now is you're going to take your hips and kind of put your hands on your hips, and you're going to take, let's do right side, and you're going to pull that hip up and down. So you're going to basically do a side crunch where you pull the rib and hip together and squeeze your obliques. Okay, now set that foot down, take your right arm and just reach across. And so as you reach across, let your hips now slide to the right. Okay, coming up, now let's take and lift that left hip, pull it up and squeeze. And then we'll do one more. And then as that foot sets down, now let's go into that stretch and then push the hips to the side. Okay, coming up. We're then going to shift your weight towards your left foot. We're gonna take the right foot and we're gonna just do a rotation in and out. So it's just a hip movement here. As you're rotating out to the side, make sure that your hips are staying straight to the front. Okay, so now let's rotate that knee out to the side, and then can you bring your toes off the floor? So essentially we're coming into tree pose. And then can you draw your knee back a little bit more without your right hip following it? That right hip bone's got to stay forward as the knee goes back. Okay, let's release. Let's switch it to the other side. So first just start with range of motion of the hip. Okay, now let's go into a hold and lifting that foot up for balance. And then from here, set that foot down. Okay, now what I'm going to have us do is let's do a few down and ups of chair pose. So just that motion right there, just down and up. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to take one foot in front, and you can just either let the heel stay down or the toes, whatever you want here. And now let's do one-legged. So one-legged movement. Normally I have you guys really focus on the hips going back, but what I actually want to focus on this time is the hip not popping out. So go back. How much can you keep this leg that's staying on the ground vertical instead of the hip going out? So this too should activate lateral hip. And then if you want to try a few of them, let this foot fully come off and try to come up and down. Okay, let's release that. Let's take and switch sides. And again, you can keep your foot down, just doing a few to start with. And then as you're doing that, I want you to check your heels, because your heels kind of rotate in to give you better balance, but it's not it's not alignment when that happens. Okay, now try a few with maybe the foot fully lifted up. And then release. Okay, from here, you're going to grab your band and we're going to put it right above the ankles. So take and grab that. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to do that walk side to side, but we're going to do so with it now with resistance. So let's start now, just kind of stepping side to side. And again, you're watching what first creates the movement. And sometimes when we add load, our body alters the way we previously did it, because the load now puts a force on the body that the body's like, oh, I got to change, I got to adapt this a little bit. And if you're not quite sure if you're leading with the heel or the toe, try a few of them with your toes turned out a little bit. And again, hopefully you'll feel the difference where it moves to more of an inner thigh aspect. And then switch it again. Hopefully we'll get lateral hip. You can also do a few of them where you roll to that outer edge of the foot. 2. Okay, now let's release that off of our legs for a moment. This next one, we're just going to try to stretch this out for just a moment. And so if you want to hold on to something to take balance out of it, you can do that. So you're just going to cross an ankle over top of the opposite knee and then work on trying to sit back a little here. Okay, let's switch sides. And then we'll come up. Okay, so feet are gonna face forward. Last time what we did was we lifted a hip up. Okay, now what you're gonna do is these hip bones are gonna stay the same height and you're just gonna, it's gonna be a really subtle lift of the foot. So let's do left leg stays down, right foot is just gonna hover. And you gotta use these lateral hip muscles and pelvic floor muscles to create the lift. So it's not jacking a hip up to do it. Also, I'm not bending my knee. So my legs are both straight as I create that, just a little lift up of the foot. Next time that foot lifts up, I want you to hold it up and can you just give it a little swing forward and back. So this outside hip, again, should be getting tired because that's what's being worked here. Okay, set that foot down. You're gonna take left arm, just reach it over. And then again, you can slide your hip out to the side. Okay, let's come up. Okay, right foot's gonna be our stability. And then that left foot, we're just gonna try to pick it up and hover. Okay, let's pick it up and hold here. You can see if you can do a little swing. And then step it down. Okay, now we're gonna go into a balancing move again. So left leg will stay down. What you're gonna do now is you're gonna pick up that right foot and you're gonna swing it in front of you. So push your right heel away. It's like there was a wall in front of you. Okay, now can you add a little rotation here? Last time. Take that leg down, switch it to the other side. Now do a little lift up, so get your foot lifted up and then bring it forward. And then again, rotation. Last time. Okay, take it out. I'm going to show you a side view. And what we're going to do is we're going to shift our weight to the right foot again. We're going to do this same exercise again. Lift your foot up, and as this foot comes forward, let your hips go forward. So see, so I'm kind of in a little bit of a curve, and just hold that for a moment. And as you hold it, I want you to notice what is really engaged to help lift you up. And then set that foot down for a second. So probably it was a lot of quads for some of you. Left foot, keep left foot down again. Take your right foot forward. Let the hips pull forward. Now take the hips and pull the hips back so that you have a straight line from your center of your hip, center of your knee, center of your foot. And hopefully now you're going to get these side lateral muscles and butt muscles working with you. Okay, let's take it down. So let's switch sides. And as that foot comes forward, again, let your whole body, let your hips come forward towards your toes. Okay, so now let's start to pull the hips back. So you kind of got to pull your butt back, and that'll get this leg vertical. And then let's release. Okay. Right foot is going to come forward. Heel will be down. We're going to go back to those one-legged squats. So before you even start, check your heel. See if it turned in. Turn it back out a little. And then let's go into those one-legged squats. Heel can stay down or lifted. Okay, let's switch to the other side. One more time. You're then going to grab your band again and put it around your shins. Okay, the first few times that we've done this walk side to side, we've emphasized toes and heels. Now what I want to look at is, are you bending your knees at all to create this step? Okay, so you want straight legs, and let's start with our hips forward. So you're kind of in that curved position, and let's step side to side. So we're still doing the same things we were doing before as far as leading with the heel, but our hips are forward a little bit. Okay, so now I want you to bring your butt back. So instead of your legs being at an angle, your center of your hip, center of your knee, center angle, all in alignment here. And for some of us, our pelvis does this. So you need to draw your pelvis down. Now step side to side. So don't bend your knees. Legs are straight. It's kind of like peg legs. And your body is completely vertical instead of any part of it being forward. Okay, take that off again. And before we move on, let's just come down into a forward fold. And if you have your block, you can put your block at its highest height. And as you're here, you can let your hips sway right to left, and it can stretch out this lateral hip a little. So turn your heels out slightly. And if you want to even let kind of the upper body move away from you, you can do that. So even in this kind of moving the hips, you can lean forward a little bit. So you can take your block forward a little bit. and lean right to left. So your hips are maybe kind of over your toes, and then you can also lean it back too. So where your hip is behind your heels. So you can kind of play with that and it'll switch the stretch. And then you can also play with your feet and you can roll to that outside edge of your feet. So big toes lifted up. And again, that might get a greater stretch in the lateral body. Okay, let's come up. You're gonna place your block down on the floor. And let's take right foot onto the block. Okay, first what we're gonna do is let the left foot hover. And you're probably gonna see that this left hip is lower than the right. Okay, so let's just do a few where we pull that hip up and try to squeeze our lower rib and hip together. So it's that oblique crunch here. Okay, now let's do a few where we're just letting this hip dip down a little bit, come to level. Let hip drops down, level. The foot that's on the block, you're really pushing that foot down. And these side, again, lateral muscles are gonna activate to help pull this side of the hip up. Okay, let's switch. So first we'll start with just a kind of, again, that oblique crunch. Okay, now let's just do hips level, drop down. Okay, last time, and then you can come up off that block for a second. Let's go to the right side again. And we're going to let this foot hover. So feet should be the same height and these top hip bones should be even. And can you rotate your toes in and out? Okay, so you keep doing that. Now, this standing leg, what we can do is push our hips forward. So you need to make sure your hips are back over your heel. And then what we can do is we can bend that knee so this quad gets all the work. So you gotta straighten your leg. Okay, from here, now take this outside leg. Can you turn it into tree pose? Hold. And then let's take it down. Let's switch to the other side. So feet the same height, hip bones the same height, work that rotation. Move your hips back a little bit, so hips over heel. And standing, both legs will be straight. Okay, now let's take it into tree pose. Okay, release down. Take that block out for a second. I'm just gonna turn sideways. So let's again take the right foot out to the side as we would in tree pose. As you bring that foot up, let your hips come forward. Then start to pull your butt back. Try to get yourself vertical So now you're going to activate the glutes here, and then see if you can lift your foot up a little bit higher. And you can do hands here if you want to do arms up. So bottom leg, push that foot down into the floor, straighten out the knee, make sure your hips are back. And then next breath, release. Let's switch that to the other side. So first, when you start, let your hips come forward. And then start to back your hips up as you lift that leg up. So now your glutes are supporting you as you hold into this tree pose. And then we'll come down. Okay, what we're going to do now is take and get whatever your uneven surface is, whether that's a pillow, a blanket, a towel. And we'll start with, let's see, right foot onto it. So we're basically going to use this like we were using the block. So let's start with seeing if you can pick the other foot up and just try to find balance. So you don't really have to think about a lot of alignment stuff right now, because we're just trying to find balance. And you might notice like your ankle really wobbles. Okay, let's try the other side. Okay, we'll step off of that. Before we switch, before we do that again, take and interlock your thumbs and spread your fingers really wide. We're going to take the arms up above us and then lean to one side, pop your hip out. And now reach your fingers away like you were trying to grab onto a rope just outside your grasp. And let's come up, let's switch sides. And then come up. Okay, right foot on our uneven surface. Okay, before we even lift the other leg up, watch if your hip did that. Pull your hip back in. And then think about if your hip went forward, pull your hips back. So get all of that alignment set. And now try to hover the other leg. Can you begin to move the other leg out in front of you? Flex the foot here. And then we'll set that foot down. Let's switch sides. So before you even get into it, get your hips where they need to be, which is oftentimes pulled in and back a little bit. And then watch how your upper body starts to lean. And then you lift that foot. And we'll start to bring that leg out in front of us. Press the heel forward. And then we'll step down. Okay, right foot again. This time what we're going to do is we're going to take this left knee and we're going to bring it up in front of you. So into a one-legged mountain pose. Just work extending and then slowly bringing it up. Okay, let's switch sides. So we'll start with just holding first. And then see if we can extend and draw up. Okay, let's come off that. We're going to come back to that. But bring your block to the high side and let's come into a forward fold. If you want to take your feet a little bit wider, you can go even wider. Again, maybe turn the heels out a little bit more. You want to tick-tock the hips. Get more of a stretch in the side body. You can do that. Okay, walk the hips, not the hips, the feet. Walk the feet in so your feet are right underneath your hips. Okay, the same stuff that we've been doing standing, you can do in this fashion as well. So shift your weight to your right foot. Okay, so shift to the right foot. Don't pop your hip out though. Okay, now can you pull the left foot up off the floor? So don't bend the knee. Think about a string at the top of this left hip, and it's going to pull this left hip up, and your foot will just hover. Okay, let's switch to the other foot. I'm noticing that as I'm doing this, like I'm dumping all of my weight into my wrists and my arms. So I've probably shifted my hips forward a little bit. So I'm gonna back my butt up just a little bit and get some of that weight off my hands. So I'm not death gripping the block. Okay, so both feet flat. Here's where we're gonna go with this one. You're gonna start with right foot's gonna stay on the floor. You're gonna lift the left foot up off your mat. And then you're going to extend it behind you. Slowly bring that foot down, and the foot should skim right above the floor and then set it down. And we're going to do that same side again. Lift it up, extend it back, and then it's going to hover. And it's hovering because we've engaged the lateral hips so much. Okay, one more time on this side. And now let's shift it to the other side. So weight on your left foot. And you're going slowly. And how high you lift your leg behind you is really going to be dependent upon your balance. So don't feel like you have to lift it up to a certain height. We want to work stability here more than kind of perfection of a look. Okay, last one. And then you're going to come up from that. You're going to take your uneven surface. We're going to do the hardest version of this first, because then when we do a different version, it should hopefully be a little bit easier. All right, right foot is going to start On our surface, we are going to start to put our weight on that foot and lift the knee up into that one-legged mountain. Okay, we're then going to extend the leg down. And now you're going to hinge forward as that leg goes behind you. So now you're in yoga called Warrior 3. And arms can go wherever you want. Okay, take and come back up to standing. Let that foot rest for a second. I'm going to turn sideways. So when you start to extend the leg behind you, the hips oftentimes go really far forward. You got to keep your hips back so this leg is vertical. Okay, so let's start in the top. Let's start at the very beginning of this. Lift the knee up. Okay, extend the leg back long. Now keep your hips back as the leg comes behind you. And then release. Okay, let's switch to the other foot. So find alignment first, and then knee lifts. Then we'll extend and we'll start to hinge forward. And then come out of that, rest for a moment. Okay, one more time, lifting up. Extend, leg behind you, keep the hip in alignment with the ankle. And then foot down, stand up. Okay, move your blanket out of the way for 1 second here. Okay, now from here, you're going to do this whole series though, but without the uneven surface. So hopefully it's a little bit easier. Okay, so let's start. Right foot will stay down. Left, before we do the lifting of the knee, let's just do this part first. Hover your right foot and then start to hinge forward as that leg comes behind you. And then what you're going to do is you're going to upright your torso, keep that foot lifted so it should just skim, and then you're going to come up into that one-legged mountain. Take the leg back down. It should still be hovering right above the floor. Take and extend it back behind you. And then swing it through back to the bent knee. Okay, set that foot down. Let's switch it to the other side. So right foot hovers, going behind you. Then swing it down and through, up to the other side. Take it back along again, through, back. And then all the way down to standing tall. Okay, we're going to do that one more time just because the repetition gets a little bit easier as our body kind of figures out what's going on. As you do this one, make 2 things I want you to watch. Hips sliding forward, and then the leg that stays on the ground, you bending that knee a little bit. Okay, so let's start. Left leg's our mover, so let it hover. Let the leg come back. Now, push your butt back just a little bit. Straighten the standing leg. Okay, let that pendulum swing through all the way up. Okay, leg extends, pendulum all the way back. Both legs straight. And then we'll set that left foot down. Okay, switch to the other side. Lower the leg through and up to our one-legged mountain. Let's lower, extend back. Foot coming down. Okay, you're going to take and have a seat. And as you do that, grab your looped band. We're not going to use the band for strength. We're going to use it for a stretch. So take it around your left foot. And as you're seated, let's just check pelvis a little bit. So maybe rock back and forward a few times. And then we'll stay with the pelvis forward slightly. Okay, we're going to take this left foot and we're just going to do this up and over. So opposite hand. And if you don't want the band and you can actually reach to the outside edge of your foot, you can do it that way as well. If you're like, I don't feel much of a sensation. Okay, now we're going to bring it up and over. You're going to hold it there. Push your heel away. And then other arm is going to reach back. You can turn your head to look back too if you want. And then from here, let's release that down. Let's switch to the other side. We'll just start with some up and overs to begin with. If you are catching your foot, you don't want to be hunched as you do it. You want to have a tall spine. So again, if this is too much, you can even just grab closer to the foot with your band. Okay, now let's bring it up and over. We'll hold, opposite arm back. And then as you release, just bring the soles of your feet together here. And let's just do a few motions just side to side. And then let's take one arm out to the side, reach across. And then we'll switch to the other side. And then you can come up.